Today, on Be Something Wonderful, watch this and you'll never doubt all things are possible ever again. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. Big video today, but the first announcement is our audio today is going to be a little off. I don't have that microphone that I normally have attached to my shirt today, so I'm doing this without the benefit of a microphone. So hopefully those in the back, if you can hear me. And so guys, but we'll have it for our next video. We're going to have everything back up. In relation to that, our calendar was also down. The coaching calendar was also down for a few hours last night into early this morning. We made some adjustments. We've been making a few changes here to really accommodate the volume in the coaching schedule. It's been blowing up, and I'm really pleased. I love talking to you guys, and we will be making some changes. There's going to be some time blocked off for the holiday schedule that's coming. We might be making some changes next year and moving the format to groups. We'll let you know on that. But I just wanted to let you know we're back on. The calendar's up, so several of you have written me and said you couldn't schedule a session. Well, now you can. So today I want to talk about this client yesterday. It said, Tom, how do I believe? How do I believe all things are possible? Really had struggling with belief. And as you know, for those that have talked to me, for those that have watched the videos, I always say be willing to believe, right? Because when you turn to that great creative power, when you turn to God, God turns to you. Just a willingness to believe, that will within you, just to believe. You don't have to believe it fully. Just be willing to. We're going to cover this idea today like we never have before. And part of the reason, as we got into with this client, that he doesn't believe is because he's always looking out there in the 3D world conditions for evidence and proof of what's possible. Do you see it? Looking for evidence of a proof of who you are. You're not going to find it out there in the world of dead effects, in the world of dead thoughts. You're always looking at the past. So you're not looking at what's possible, right? You're not. You're looking at things that already have been, right? What's possible is within, right? You're looking at the past, your old dead thoughts and assumptions of what was possible, not what is possible. Right? You are only ever seeing and experiencing your past mix of dominant thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and assumptions. Right? With men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Jesus was clear here. Right? With men, with you looking out in the 3D world, with you looking out at the dead thoughts, the dead effects, and looking at things that already were, well, then it's impossible. But with God, with that I am, with that changeless, infinite reality within you, all things are possible. It's infinite. It's unlimited. It's all potential. Right? In the 3D world, the manifested world of dead thoughts and effects, it's impossible. Jesus was clear there. So the question isn't, is it possible? Right? Jesus, your I am awareness, answered that question. The question is it probable? Based on your current imaginings, based on your mix of thoughts, assumptions, and beliefs, is it probable? Because all things are possible, but it depends on your mix, right? What are you imagining? What are you thinking? What are you assuming? When you ask, is it possible? You're looking out in the world of dead thoughts and dead effects for evidence or proof of who you are. Instead, ask, who do you say I am? That's why Jesus asked that eternal question. Who do you say I am? That's the question to be asking. Not is it possible, but who, because who and what you're conscious of being is your entire life experience. That's what determines what's possible, right? But what you imagine, what you believe determines what's probable, right? What you're assuming is what's probable. So ask that question. In the Adidas campaign, I talked about this. I'm linking 2 videos where I really unpacked the metaphysical lesson that Muhammad Ali taught us about your I am, about your greater nature, right? Remember, Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest, I am the sexiest. Who's the wisest? Who's the sexiest? Who's the greatest? Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali. This was his affirmation. This was his thing, right? But remember, there was an ad campaign where it said, impossible is nothing. And I attributed that quote to Muhammad Ali, but it was actually an ad campaign that he was featured in. But it fits him perfectly because Muhammad Ali didn't get defined by the outside world. He didn't allow the subjective tendencies of the race consciousness to define who he is. He determined within, I am the greatest, and he became the greatest. Even as he says, before I knew it, before I believed it, I declared it. So this ad said impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world that they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. The world that you've been given is that world of that race consciousness, of that mass consciousness, of that mass subjective tendency that even Vadim Zeland would call the pendulum of thoughts. You're following that unless you're consciously determining who you are and what you want, what you're assuming, who you want to be. Something or someone else is, and that's that great subjective tendency of everybody else determining who you are, right? And it goes on to say, impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is a potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. I love this, right? The world you've been given, the subjective tendencies created by what others in the 3D world think, assume, and believe. That's the world you've been given. So what's it going to be, right? What's it going to be? Let's continue with this today. Stop trying to believe and be willing to believe. This was the discussion with him, right? God turns to us as we turn to him. Ernest Holmes. It's not that God's not always with us. God's always with us. But in terms of you're a point or a creative hub of that divine mind, of the mind of God. Right? So when you think, God thinks. What you believe, God believes. What you assume, God assumes. God's unlimited. But in terms of what you're going to experience, depends on what you think, assume, and imagine. It's unlimited, but you've got to put demand on that divine unlimited supply, which we talked about yesterday, right? This is the law of reciprocity Ernest Holmes is pointing to, between your mind and the divine mind of God, that great subconscious. You are a creative center in the divine mind. And since there is only one infinite mind, wherever God is at all, the all of God is there. Right? And wherever you are at all of God is there. All power, all potential, all knowing. That's the reciprocity. That's the good news. Wherever you are at all, God is. Wherever God is, you are. It's complete reciprocity, but you've got to put the demand on it. You've got to ask for what you want. You've got to assume and believe and be willing to believe all things are possible. That's why nothing is impossible. You are all knowing. You are all potential. You are all power. Muhammad Ali was a master at answering the eternal question, who do you say I am? He would say, I am the greatest. I said that before I knew I was. I said that before I believed I was. Hear what he's saying here. I figured that if I said it enough, in other words, repeated it, right, with affirming it, I would convince the world that I was really the greatest. Listen to that. In other words, I said that, I affirmed that even before I knew, even before the 3D world me in the 3D world believed it. Even before I could believe it, consciously believe it, I affirmed it. Do you see what he's saying here? Before I could see it, if I affirmed it enough, in other words, repetition and frequency, I would convince, I am conviction, inner authority, it's out pictured in the world. It would be, I would convince the 3D world of conditions. I would convince the 3D world with that inner authority, with that conviction, with that I am, it would be reflected in the outer world. That's what he's saying, that he really was the greatest, right? Your inner reality becomes that outer reality. That's very powerful here. Ali understood the power of being willing to believe the impossible. and the reciprocity between the conscious and subconscious mind, that one divine mind of God. That's what we mean by that subconscious mind in this case. Remember, there's no separation. So there's no division anyway. You're one with it. We're the ones that create the division with our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and limitations, right? Remember, it's the repetition of affirmations that leads to the belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. That's Ali. This is a quote from Ali. It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. This is from Muhammad Ali, the greatest I am affirmer ever, right? Consciously, in other words, it's the repetition, consciously impressing that subconscious, right? The repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, that you're inner authority, right? That things begin to happen. Boy, do they, right? Your subconscious expresses your subconscious expresses your dominant beliefs and assumptions. It believes whatever you believe. Do you see it? God can't believe beyond what you're believing, right? God believes it. God is infinite, but you've got to put that demand on it between what you believe. You've got to impress it, right, with what you believe, what you assume, right? That's what faking it till you make it really means. Because you're not faking it, rather, you're establishing rapport with that great creative power within. So you're not really faking anything. There are no truths outside of what you say is true, which you assume. So you're creating it within. You're creating that rapport, that creative power. So big today. Here in another quote, Ali doubles down. Again, 2 videos, right, packed all these ideas and more, right? Ali doubles down on the power of affirming, I am that, in the law of reciprocity. So he doubles down on the power of the I am affirmation, I am that I am, and the law of reciprocity, right? That I am not the greatest, I am the double greatest. Not only do I knock them out, I pick the round. I not only consciously affirm that I'm the greatest, I receive the intuitive message and conviction from deep within me that I'm the greatest. I receive that knowing. It's a reciprocity. God agrees with you. That great subconscious agrees with you when you're willing to believe it. Do you see it? You create that reciprocity, that rapport with the great subconscious, right? And that I need only affirm it and believe it. That's all you need to do. I'm not the greatest. He doubles down. I'm the double greatest. Not only do I knock him out, in other words, not only do I consciously affirm and call it, I'm the greatest, I receive the intuitive message and the conviction from deep within me, that knowing that I am the greatest. That's powerful, right? Neville got it in his February 1964 lecture, which I've talked about before. His Eternal Play talked about Ali, then known as Cassius Clay. Remember, Ali was known by a name given to him that he believed was a slave name, right? And so he changed his name. But I'm going to show the metaphysical lesson behind all of that today. And I've showed it in our video. Right? In February 1964, Ali, known as Clay, Cassius Clay, knocked out Sonny Liston in the 7th round, the world champion. He knocked out the world champ, and shocking the world against all odds. Right? Ali, who was known for a lot of talk, was seen to light on his feet, but they didn't consider him a heavy puncher, right? A strong puncher. He beat the odds like 8 or 7 to 1. Right? And Neville got it, talks about it in his lecture. I'm going to show that today. He won the gold medal in the 1960 Olympics with the dream to be the greatest world champion. That was his dream. So that's what he declared, that he's the greatest. Right? A beautiful demonstration of the law of assumption. He didn't ask himself, Ali didn't ask, what do I do, Cassius Clay? What do I need to do to be the greatest? What do I, Cassius Clay, need to do to be the greatest? In other words, it's like Jesus asking, what do I, the Son of Man, need to do to be considered Christ, the Son of the living God? It makes no sense. Right? What do I need to do, Cassius Clay, the Son of Man, need to do to be the greatest? To turn into that new identity, Muhammad Ali. Right? Remember, he changed his religions. In other words, representing that he changed his beliefs in who he really is. Right? I am the greatest. He announced and claimed it. Right? I am the greatest. That was his announcement. He allowed all the assumptions and beliefs to be created around this new identity. He decided who he is, and then allowed the assumptions and the beliefs and the reality to be rearranged around that assumption. What a great, powerful demonstration of the law of assumption. He didn't ask, what do I have to do to become that? He became it. And what he did became obvious, became natural. Right? The doing becomes part of it. It all becomes enchanted. Right? It all becomes inspired. Right? And he said, he'll fall in 8 and to prove I'm great, about Sonny Liston. Predicting it, right? He'll fall in 8 to prove I'm great. But listen to what he's really saying here. Now remember, Liston didn't get up for the 8th round. Right? It was done. Technical knockout. Right? He finished it in 7. Now what I like about that, you know the biblical meaning of 7. Right? Mentioned over 400 times, 700 times in the Bible. Right? That's a powerful, the number 7 is powerful. It means completion. It means done. It means divinity. It means you're one with that greater reality. You're one with that great identity. So 7, get them in 7, right? To demonstrate your new reality and identity. You detach from the old reality and rise to the conscious, your new identity. In other words, he'll fall in 8. Remember, you play all the parts. That old identity, that old reality, the old man, his old self falls away to rise in consciousness to prove that new identity. Do you see that? Do you see how that quote talks about the perfect metaphysics, demonstrating Neville Goddard's teachings and others, that old man falls or goes away or he dies to the old self. He'll fall in 8 to prove I'm great, to prove that new identity, that new reality. That's powerful. You detach from the old reality and rise in consciousness to the new identity. Very powerful. In that same year, 1964, the same year where he beat Liston and became the world champion against all odds, right? Ali renounced his slave name. He changed his name. In other words, what does that mean? He renounced it, like you're renouncing that you're in bondage to the 3D world. That's what that represents. That old identity of limiting beliefs that keeps you in bondage, of old assumptions, of an unwanted reality. So Ali, representing that by changing his slave name to Muhammad Ali, to reflect his new identity, his new beliefs, his new assumptions that he indeed is the greatest. Do you see that? Perfect. The metaphysical story of dying to the old identity of limitations. No longer a slave to those limiting beliefs. No longer in bondage to the limiting beliefs of the 3D world. Wow, that's powerful, right? Neville Goddard, in his 1964 lecture, referring to Paul in 2 Timothy 4:7, I have fought the good fight, as Paul says. And here's what Neville says, referring to that very night that Ali knocked out Liston, or Cassius Clay knocked out Liston. But because the end is predetermined, in other words, you determine the outcome, you go to the end. The law of assumption determines your experience of the 3D world. Creation's finished. You decide, you assume, you imagine, you declare what part of all that is, all that you are, that you want to experience next. Because it's predetermined, I cannot altogether call it a fight. He's referring to what Paul's saying in Scripture. I have fought the good fight in that lecture in 1964. Because the fight, like tonight's fight, is most uncertain, as you have heard the outcome. Right? It was all about Liston. It was all in favor of Liston. Everyone, the 3D world was saying, no, the champ's Liston. He's gonna clean Ali up. Look at what happened. Right? I cannot altogether call it a fight because the fight, like tonight's fight, is most uncertain, as you have heard the outcome. Uncertain in the 3D world because the law of assumption rules who you are, that I amness, who you declare yourself to be. That's powerful. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Ali Clay, right, Cassius Clay, defied all the wisdom of the world by knocking out Sonny. Right, here's what Neville Goddard says. All the wisdom of the world put it on one person because of a record, because of facts. The facts of 3D reality. Those conditions that we look at that we think are so fixed or so solid, right? Because of the record. And the other fellow won. Ali won, right? Cassius Clay won. All the wisdom of the world means nothing in the eyes of God, in the eyes of I am that I am. in the eyes of you declaring, stepping in, taking a stand in your conviction, taking a stand in your new reality, taking a stand in your assumption. That's what it means to take a stand. I think one of you were asking on the channel, what's an example of that? Assuming your end. That's the example. Imagine and assume things are the way you want them to be. Imagine, assume you're already that person you want to be, and be it. No matter what the conditions are showing you. That's what we're talking about, right? Neville continues, did you see him on TV? Referring to Clay, right? Who is the greatest? Cassius Clay. So Muhammad Ali would ask the question, who am I? Who do you say I am? Who do men say I, the Son of Man, Cassius Clay? Remember, Cassius Clay representing the old identity, the Son of Man becoming Christ, the Son of the living God, Cassius Clay becoming Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay, the Son of Man. Who's the prettiest? Cassius Clay. Who's the biggest? Cassius Clay. He beat that. This is what Neville says. He beat that. Who's the wisest? Cassius Clay. Tongue twister. And he beat that into his mind's eye. And he said, he affirmed and announced it. I'll take him in 8. I'll take him before 8 because I'm great. That's from Neville Goddard. Right? That's from Neville Goddard. He beat it. Neville Goddard says he beat that into his mind's eye. And he said, I'll take him before 8 because I'm great. Well, he did take him before 8. In 7 rounds, right? The biblical power. That number 7 mentioned hundreds of times in Scripture. Meaning completion, meaning done, meaning it's yours, meaning you are that greater reality, meaning you're perfect in every way. That's what it's talking about. I am because I'm great, right? Who do men say I, the Son of Man, am? The Christ, and then Peter answers, the Christ, the Son of the living God, Son of the living God. In other words, Cassius Clay. Who's Cassius Clay? It's Muhammad Ali, right? Changes religions, represents his change in belief, his change in conviction, right, of who he really is. Right, dropping, shedding that old identity, shedding those old limiting beliefs, and being the greatest. That's powerful today. This is Ali really gives us a masterclass in consciously assuming, imagining, affirming you already are that person you desire to be. Right, but like Neville says, the only thing that keeps you from being it is because you don't believe it, because you refuse to believe it. Hear it. Neville says that. The only thing that keeps you from seeing it is your refusal to believe it. Muhammad Ali did not refuse to believe it. He was willing to believe. Even when he said, at first he didn't believe it. At first he didn't know. Right? He didn't know he was the greatest, but he affirmed it. Anyway, he was willing to believe. Ali, from within his subjective beingness, right? That subjective beingness, that I amness, that we are, sensed the truth. In other words, consciously sense the truth. We consciously can sense that we're greater than these conditions, that there's something within us that exists and will always exist. Just by being able to aware of anything, being able to look out and look at things that look separate from us. That who's doing the looking? That's your awareness of being that knows that separation, right? Therefore, he consciously affirmed it repeatedly. As it became consciously accepted and subconsciously impressed. The true demonstration of how to use affirmations, right? Then that great creative power made it an outer reality, right? Reflecting the inner reality of I am the greatest. His belief then becomes a conscious and subconscious conviction, a reality out there in 3D world, manifested reality, establishing perfect rapport and reciprocity between heart and mind. He established perfect rapport and reciprocity between heart and mind. Wow, that's a masterclass. Watch this and you'll never doubt all things are possible ever again. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, I'm sorry about that. The microphone issue, we're going to have that corrected for our next video. And I think I talk loud enough because I know some of you have asked, why are you yelling? And I always say that I'm not yelling. I'm from Massachusetts. That's how we talk, right? So anyway, we're going to have that all. The calendar's up. So if you've been wanting to book, you can book now. Guys, thank you. Don't forget to join our Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful, the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors, where you can get insight and guidance from others. Join us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin. Join our membership channel tomorrow morning. We have another live stream. Going to be set up for that tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the morning. We're going to come to you live, exclusively on the membership channel. And if you're a member, thank you for being with us. Tune in. If you're not a member, check it out. There's a link below. There was content released about a week ago, a new video. There'll be more content coming out. But the live stream's tomorrow morning at 9. Be sure to tune in. You can continue to send your questions to info@besomethingwonderful.com. Creators, with great love, with great light, and infinite gratitude, this is Tom of Be Something Wonderful. We'll see you soon.